mantra I've had for a while is that data is the start and end point, kind of what the team needs to be doing. We use experimentation as the vehicle to drive the change. If we don't have a data as a start point, kind of say to the team, question yourself as to what you're doing. Is it assumption? Is it fact? Where do you go from there?
You've seen Adidas, you have seen Vistaprint, and then you started at the AA. How was that different?
Different in terms of setup and size. So Vistaprint and the AA, probably pretty similar in terms of size in how we had to work. But Adidas is it's a global monster, right? I worked in the global team, the global optimization, personalization team, and my remit was to work on a experimentation and personalization strategy to plug into the resource to do it. So in a sense, it made my job easy because I was the person they were looking at. So I could go and the trust was there to be able for me to put it in play. I obviously had to earn that trust over the time in terms of, I'm saying this now, but judge me in a year's time when we'll see what we've kind of delivered. So start to tell a narrative internally to sell into whichever stakeholders say, this probably a focus needs to go over here. We're looking over here today. The data's telling us we should probably be putting a bit of emphasis over here. I suppose in terms of activity, every test that we do, positive or negative, we get insight from it. That helps with everything that we do. We do learn more from the tests that don't succeed, because that gives us more insight to move forward.
Stuart, you have been in the optimization space for quite a while, and you are now Senior Manager Digital Trading, Optimization and Personalization at the AA. And you have been there for about 4 years. And what I know from you is you also worked at super big brands like Adidas, Vistaprint, now the AA. And I was wondering, what is maybe your specific skill or superpower that you have carried with you all this time and that works in all of these different companies?
I'm not sure I could class it as a superpower, but I'm naturally quite a calm person. Composure definitely comes into it. And I think working in CRO for as long as I have and working kind of on the digital front line of making changes that are customer facing, you kind of need that composure because it leads to adaptability, right? So I'm sure you're aware, working in big businesses, there's volume targets, there's value targets, and they can change on a daily basis. So leading a team like I do, I need that composure to be able to, switch. You need to go after this today. You need to go there today. Regardless of the businesses I've worked in, you've mentioned those three. They're all big businesses. Adidas a lot bigger than the other two. But that kind of mindset still needs to be there. Get an understanding, take a step back. Okay, what we're trying to achieve here. What's the best approach to do that? If we need to pivot, what route should we take? And I think that's definitely helped me from a position of being able to support not just my team, but also deliver up towards kind of senior management as well.
And can you share a little bit about what your team actually looks like? How many people are in there?
My team today is, there's 4 of us in terms of a wider team. There's myself, and then I have 2 optimization managers underneath me, and I have a front-end developer as support to help build the test activity that we deliver for the business. So we're spread across 4 or 5 primary digital journeys in the business, and then there's some kind of subsidiary journeys that we will support as well. So the 2 managers within the team support kind of the 2 big journeys there across breakdown and motor insurance, home insurance as well. So we touch on multiple journeys, and our job is to kind of plug into the product teams to help them deliver against their OKR objectives.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that. So it's a centralized team that kind of goes out and services or helps the other product teams then?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it kind of sits on a horizontal. So that trading team that I sit within supports all areas, and we will go in, plug in, say, okay, what's your backlog, what's your journey, understand the pain points, understand user frustrations, that kind of thing, and then build out test backlogs.
And what does that plugin looks like? Do you have like weekly meetings with those teams? How do you make sure that you're all the time aware of what's going on and you know how to help?
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes back to when I first came here 4.5 years ago. Testing was done intermittently across one journey, and there was no real foundations or process in place to do it. It was kind of just like an ad hoc kind of idea and plan. So the remit for me to come in was, can you put in place a standardized approach to scale testing across the journeys with the remit initially? Okay, focus on one journey, and then once that kind of success is there, build that out across the different teams. So process is very, very important. Understanding the start point, the end point, but also the relationships that are involved with kind of that operating model. So to your point there, do it weekly sessions. Yeah, we have weekly sessions with the different teams. We meet with the product owner, the lead designer, the lead content editor, etc., to get an understanding of what's in their backlog. How can we get our activity into their backlog and then go from there and educate them on the insight, not just of the test, but also so in the trading environment, we know our baseline metrics and performance very well. So feeding that into the business, the product owners, so that they have full awareness of what's happening within their area too.
But you said you started 4 years ago and there was no process. It was more like ad hoc work. Where did you start to build a process? What was the first thing?
It initially came in and I just kind of met with the key stakeholders who were doing that testing to understand what they were doing, why they were doing it, how they were doing it, and what was driving it. So it was understanding, okay, what foundations do you have in place, and where are the gaps, where are the holes in there, and then taking that step back and building out a plan of what the foundations need to be. Okay, you're using the optimization tool to deliver the test activity, but who's actually building the test? That was very kind of, nobody owned it. It was an analyst. She'd taken it on board and actually skilled herself up in some CSS and HTML and started to do it for house, which was great, but that's not sustainable, right? So it was a case, okay, I need a front-end developer going to say, if you brought me to do this, if you want to scale, this is kind of the resource I'm going to need to be able to do that. Understanding those gaps and then going from there. It's the resource to build, and it's the ability to record the impact of the test was the two main things that I wanted to solve for, and kind of a mantra I've had for a while is that data is the start and end point for kind of what the team needs to be doing. We use experimentation as the vehicle to drive the change. If we don't have a data as a start point, kind of say to the team, question yourself as to what you're doing. Is it assumption? Is it fact? Where do you go from there?
So your first big change was trying to hire a front-end developer?
That came kind of stuck with it to get through. I'd say the first 6 months, I didn't have that resource in play. It was, okay, this is where we are today. I need to build this foundation, but we also need to deliver at the same time. So let's make sure that we have a backlog of activity that is going to deliver against the short-term objectives, while at the same time, so okay, let me build the business case to be able to ask for additional resource to get the front-end developer. And when that front-end developer came in, then it was a good tip. So we can now go from running 1 to 2 tests a month to 3 to 4 to potentially 5 tests a month to go from there. So that came in a little bit later.
So first you kind of just proceeded as necessary to make that business case. And then I think you probably went talk to leadership with the business case. How did you approach that? Is there anything our listeners can maybe learn from you, and what did you pay attention to?
It's to do with as I'm sure listeners and everything is to do with revenue with senior management. What is going to deliver a return for me? So it's okay, looking at baseline data and performance, how are the journeys performing today? If I make a change on this step in the journey, this will equate to X number of additional sales, which in turn will turn into X thousands, X million pounds in additional revenue over the year. But also looking back and saying, all the tests that we've done in the past, these are the ones that failed, which is the majority of tests, right? 75% of tests generally will fail. And using that as kind of a loss prevention, saying, okay, if the product team had just taken this into play and put it there, this is what you would have lost. So it's using both ends of the scale, that kind of loss prevention. So the business case was there. It was, you want to scale. It's going to cost you this much, but I'll be able to deliver this much from revenue generation, but also saving potential losses down the line that the team wouldn't know about if they just rolled something out.
And what did you think about the differences between companies? Because you've seen Adidas, you have seen Vistaprint, and then you started at the AA. How was that different?
Different in terms of setup and size. So Vistaprint and the AA, probably pretty similar in terms of size in how we had to work. But Adidas is it's a global monster, right? I worked in the global team, the global optimization, personalization team. And my remit was to work on a experimentation and personalization strategy to plug into the global markets. So we come up with a standardized approach, and then we'd need to go on the hard sell into the US. Europe into wherever. Say, okay, this is a personalization model that we want to put in play. How can we get it embedded into you? You had to convince a lot more stakeholders and who were very mature in kind of their approach to digital. So that was a lot harder. Coming into the AA, as I mentioned here, there was no real process in play for implementation. There was a want and a need to do it, but there wasn't the resource to do it. So in a sense, it made my job easy because I was the person they were looking at, so I could go and the trust was there to be able for me to put it in play. I obviously had to earn that trust over the time in terms of, I'm saying this now, but judge me in a year's time when we'll see what we've kind of delivered. So politics is in every single business, and you need to be able to understand that and manage it accordingly. So the size and scale of the businesses I've worked in, they have differed, but the underlying challenges are probably still the same.
What's also very interesting is that you have combined CRO with personalization for a while. And what would you say, how do you use personalization to do CRO, and how do you use CRO to do personalization, I would say?
I don't use personalization today at the AA as much as I want, but that's more to do with dependencies, but also data access and things like that. So you kind of start from one size fits all approach. We do a lot of testing where we wouldn't have any kind of segmentation on it, where we're working within a core acquisition journey. We don't have users logged in. We have users just coming in. The majority of users we don't recognize, so we need to understand that. So we'll do certain small things in terms of in-session personalizations, engaging with certain content within a page. Further down the journey, we'll be able to showcase some different content. Obviously, where I want to get to is things, contextual data, next best action models are the kind of things that we want to plug in, which I used heavily at Adidas. But the reason I was able to do that was that we had a data science team that was massive and was working on these models that we could then take on board and understand and then play in and then sell in. Here, we don't have that at play. So it's being able to understand the resource needed to put in play personalization and segmentation, but actually the return of doing it. I don't think any business delivers personalization to 100%, and probably there isn't a need to, because the impact of doing it is big. So it's weighing up that balance between return versus effort. So personalization is something on the plan. We want to start doing more of it, and we have plans to do it, but it's that steady steps of doing it. And I suppose it's similar to going back to where I was 4 years ago when we brought in CRO. It's taking the initial first use cases, showcasing what the value could be, getting the buy-in, proving the buy-in, then move on to the next step in scaling, and then understanding where that kind of ceiling is before you say, we're at this comfortable place now. Let's see how we can play with that until we want to then get to the next.
And is this one of your biggest ambitions right now? Or would you say there are other things that you're focusing on more to make the programs at the AA grow?
I think it all comes down to definition. I want to focus more on segmentation at the minute. So just that more leveled, higher level personalization of looking at channel performance, more device performance, and really getting that embedded into each product and making sure that we're really delivering at a segmented level where we need to, where the opportunity and the value is. And then saying, okay, this is just in an acquisition space. In life, customers, we sell products that users buy, and they hope that they never have to use for the next year because they don't want to be breaking down, they don't want to be claiming on insurance, but we need to give them a reason to come back and use our services, whether that's the app or into your account. So what personalization opportunities do we have for existing customers? We hold a lot of data on them. What could we use to push to them, whether that's a cross-sell, upsell, that kind of thing?
Is there anything you can also share with us that you learned about the visitors at the AA, or anything you learned from an experiment maybe?
Regardless of the product that you're selling, visitors are pretty consistent in terms of how they interact with digital journeys. So it's being able to understand those patterns as to what is happening, where and when, and more importantly, why is it happening? And then taking that out and being able to build out a hypothesis backlog based off of that, or start to tell a narrative internally to sell into whichever stakeholders say, there's probably a focus needs to go over here. We're looking over here today. The data's telling us we should probably be putting a bit of emphasis over here. I suppose in terms of activity, every test that we do, positive or negative, we get insight from it. That helps with everything that we do. We do learn more from the tests that don't succeed, because that gives us more insight to move forward. They're also the ones that, from experience and across different industries, The ones that fail sometimes get pushed to the side more because, that's failed. We don't want to know why it's failed because nobody likes to fail. But it's being able to take that on board. And that's probably something that I've learned across the period is, don't be afraid of your failures. Showcase it. In my early career, I was definitely guilty of, this test didn't succeed. Did I want to put together that email and send it out to the senior management or whoever, the whole stakeholder list? Probably not. I'd delay on it and try, what's the best way of me doing this now? Just get it out there. It's really important.
And how do you help other people with this? Like not wanting to see losing tests and kind of embracing that failure? Is there anything you do actively, maybe with the team or with people around you?
It's the education piece again. At the start of the year, I'll work with my boss or the seniors around to suggest, I have to commit an OKR. And one of those OKRs that we have is test success rate. So, 75%, that test success rate sits at 25%. We've delivered in and around that number for the last few years, which is great. Kind of clear that number should not be jumping up to 30, 40, 50% because it's just not. It's not that it's not possible, but it then kind of directs you to do things in testing to go for a target as opposed to try and succeed with user needs as opposed to business needs. So I'll support my team. Say, look, doesn't matter if you're 3 months through the year and your success rate said you get 12%. Don't worry about it. Progress through the year. That's really important. Don't judge yourself now because by the time you get to the end of the year, you'll be in a good.
And I can imagine that those rates might also have looked very different at the different companies you worked at.
Yeah, I mean, the more you do, but and again, it depends how you're measuring success of a test. Every test will have a different kind of success metric. Where I've been, it's been in around the 15 to 30% mark is the success rate of kind of the highs and lows from what I've seen.
And is there anything else you measure to make sure the team is being successful in what they do?
As a core metric, no, but it's very important to kind of make sure that the team is comfortable in what they're delivering against and for. So kind of empowering them to drive their own backlog. I don't want to micromanage and say you need to be focusing on this, and this. I've employed you to understand the journey that you're developing or optimizing for, understand the data, where do those opportunities lie, and then give them the opportunity to communicate with stakeholders, whether that's within the product team, the senior levels as to kind of what's happening and what's going on. So that is kind of how I empower them a bit more to do that. But from a core metric standpoint, yes, we're done number of tests sent out, test success rate, but also the incremental impact of delivering those for the different journeys. We need to be able to kind of play back a financial figure against that.
And do you have to give back a financial figure every quarter, or what does that look like?
It's an annual target, so it's kind of a rolling target, but we'll track it as to kind of where we're at and how it's sitting in year or the 12-month projection.
And that's what leadership looks at, probably.
Yeah, that's kind of fed into the OKR model that will be reported against you.
And earlier you mentioned that you also kind of worked with failures and losing tests. Do you also calculate the financial value of those?
So kind of touching before, we don't do it for every single one, but if there's kind of that loss prevention metric, which is something that I'd like to put in play more. But it would be nice to have just to kind of showcase, but it would never be kind of an official metric that we would be going after. But it's a way of, again, I suppose, team morale. You put this test, put this in play, you can then sell it into the business. Say, you know what? A few years ago when you weren't doing testing, you might have just rolled that. This is what has been saved by doing so. But it'll never be a primary metric that gets reported on.
And what Stuart, was actually like your first experience with A/B testing and CRO? How did you get into contact with that?
My first A/B testing was email subject line testing.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Back in the day when it was sale promotions. Just testing some subject lines and looking at open rates as the primary metric. So did a bit of that and kind of got that bug where, you know, you send a test live and then you come in the next morning into work. First thing you want to do is go and look at the results, what's winning, what's not winning. And that still exists today, right? I'll come in the morning and go into the dashboards and see, okay, what tests are live, how are they performing, what's not performing, what's performing well. And it's always that kind of rush, or one for a better word, just to understand, okay, that change that we made there is making that impact. Oh, that one's not doing what we expected it to do. Why is that not doing it? So I got that from subject line testing a long time ago, and then that kind of progressed into content within emails, which was a form of segmentation, looking at customer affinity of what they'd purchased before. Okay, can we showcase this product category higher than the other one, and then getting that understanding, and then that progressed away from email and started to look at site. And
so kind of that curiosity is still very much there.
Yes,
since the early days.
100%. Yeah.
Very nice. And back to the AA and the 5 journeys you have. How do you currently determine where to start, which journey to start, or where to work on?
That's it's done by the size of the impact for the business. So we have like the core journeys that drive the biggest revenue impact. So we'll put the majority of the focus there. And then the smaller journeys we want to support, and we do, and we look at it. In some cases, you know, could we use that as more of a test bed to try different things? And this was something that working for a company like Adidas was really useful, because you had 18 or 19 different global sites that all looked and felt the same. You could test lots of different alternative things in the smaller markets first to understand, does that work? And if it does work, okay, let's scale this up into the bigger markets and see if that works there. So it's kind of similar here, but there's a big focus on breakdown and insurance.
So kind of size of impact is very important. Do you have any other ways to then prioritize activity and maybe even A/B test ideas and optimization ideas?
Behind that, I mean, obviously we have resource constraints to be able to do that. If we think there's an opportunity that would work across multiple journeys, we'd say, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here for us to test that on insurance, knowing full well that that's going to work in breakdown as well. And it's one of the learning curves as well that I go through kind of daily. It's like, I have a great view of what's happening in insurance and I have a great view of what's happening in breakdown. Do I bring the two together enough? Probably not. I probably need to take the learnings that I see and hear to bring them across into the other journey as well. And it's shifting yourself out of that one mindset into the other mindset and trying to bring the two together, because there's always going to be gains. The products are different, but as I touched on before, user patterns are pretty similar, and you can start to get a better understanding of what users are doing and when and why they're doing it, and embed that across the different product journeys.
Regarding user patterns, so since people at the AA, it's kind of a subscription, right? So they come once and then hope to never visit the website again. How do you attract those visitors back to you? I think you touched upon that very briefly, like you do some personalization or email campaigns. Do you ever see those users again?
So that sits out of my remit. That sits in another area of the business. There is a whole kind of retention strategy that sits there.
Yeah.
Well, campaigns to bring users back in. But what we're starting to look at now is we have an app that is predominantly used for existing customers. So they can report a breakdown, they can cross-sell, upsell, things like that. So we're starting to get an understanding of how we can use that better to drive more engagement for the customers that we know. Within the acquisition journey, yeah, it is more difficult. It is more kind of bound into in-session engagement and understanding what can happen for certain users. Okay, should we showcase them this, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's funny because you go from, selling trainers, thousands of products. The customers are very loyal and they're coming back weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, to products here. But we do support the service side of it as well, in that we have a reporter breakdown journey. So existing customers, when they're broken down, there's a journey that they have to go through, a digital journey. So the team does support in how that journey is optimized. And we want to be able to we want to get as many people reporting that through the digital journey as possible. So that helps us from a existing customer standpoint.
And you also said there is an app now. Do you experiment there yet?
Yeah, we're in the kind of the early stages of experimenting an app, and it's a whole new beast, right? It's
definitely.
You look at web experimentation, you think, oh, that's easy, absolutely no problem. What were we complaining about? So with an app, yeah, we're in the early stages of testing there and trying to work out, again, it's back to the foundations. What tools are we using? Where are the gaps? What resource do we have? Don't we have? Do we get the right data? I mean, just, we have a native app and then we're sending some users from the app into our web sales journey for some of the products that we want to sell. So, can we track those people from the app into the journey and then back into the app? 100% no, we can't do that properly today. So it's trying to work out that. So it's a good challenge because it's something new. And if we can get to a position where we're testing regularly within the app and understanding the users who are doing it, it'll help dictate kind of from an acquisition model standpoint, would probably give us some better insights as to how we can progress there as well.
What do you think are your biggest challenges there right now?
What, in terms of the app or just in general?
Yeah, the app. Yeah. Because a lot of companies want to start app testing, but like you said, it's a whole different beast.
It's managing expectations on speed. We're probably doing 3 tests a quarter at the minute, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Being able to try and scale that and the tools to do it, it's a different process in that it's very dev dependent. And the resource sits across not just testing backlog, it's for the whole app product team. The challenge is getting priority and projecting the value of it as well.
And the speed, I guess, it's limited by so many other factors, right? It needs to be approved by a store, like an app store. Then you have the user adaptation challenge. Like, will people actually install the new app with the A/B test in it?
Yeah. Again, we don't use the same tool for both web and app at the minute. I don't own the tool that we use for that. That sits within the product team. It's a case of understanding over the next kind of 6 months, 12 months, do I think the tool that we've got will help us scale where we need to be? And then that will that remove the challenges that we have today?
Is created for the app strategy and the experimentation there, or are you still kind of working on that to scale it?
It's kind of still being worked on in kind of in partnership with the app team themselves, because it's a case of understanding what are your short, medium, long-term objectives? What are you trying to achieve here? There's 2 or 3 main screens within the app, and it's understanding what is the main objective of that screen, what's the main objective of this screen. Once we kind of agree and know what that is, it's then okay. Well, that's when the thought process of what we should be testing and going after will probably start to flow.
Yeah. And looking back at your email strategy times back in the day and looking at what you're doing now, what is one thing that is always the same, or one kind of wisdom that you carry with you that you in this situation as well as back then?
Plus, I kind of touched on it a bit previously in that it's to do with kind of patterns, right? Regardless of the mentioned it a few times, but regardless of the product, the user intent and the user behavior is very similar. And so those patterns that you can start to identify will pinpoint where the opportunities lie and also where the potential pitfalls are. But again, it sounds boring, but maintaining the foundations to deliver and having a solid process in place to do it. I mean, I'll come in a day and, I want to know, is the process working for us today? If not, where's it not working? Where do we need to fix it? Because if that's the case, if one thing is not working, then something else is going to break down the line and then we're not going to be able to deliver against what we need to deliver. So that's, I think, something that has stayed consistent across, and processes helps you deliver that because it's a structure.
And is there one key to setting up a good experimentation process, if you can give our listeners like one advice?
I think, kind of said before, I have data as a start and end point. Making sure that start of the process for experimentation is hypothesis generation, right? So it's having that solid data foundation to deliver those hypotheses, but also, we're not daft. We live in a world where assumptions are always there, and we need to take on board some of those assumptions. So building a process that takes all of that in to kind of an initial understand phase, what's the data telling us? What are the assumptions? How does it fit in terms of the journey you're looking at? Moving that on into kind of ideation and then delivery. So it's understanding those key pillars from a process standpoint as a starting point, will help you move forward.
Well, Stuart, thanks so much for sharing what you have seen in terms of pattern recognition, talking about app testing, because not a lot of people have experienced this at all. So I think that's very interesting. And also thank you for sharing a bit about the process and making a business case and all that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. That was good. Enjoyed it.